Hey everyone, welcome back to Specialness. I'm Jeff.
And I'm Kim.
And we're back. We're back to have another hot and contested episode where we're gonna have reels that come out and people are gonna say, I don't do anything and you do everything, and who knows? Who knows what's gonna happen? Who knows what kind of controversy we can stir up today. Today's topic, though, is one that we've heard a lot about: grief.
And look, I'm wearing black.
You are.
I didn't even think about that. But I am wearing black.
So what are you saying? You're in mourning?
Yeah.
Perpetual mourning?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, one of the things that when we have had reels or discussion points or a couple of posts that you put out in the last couple of weeks that kind of touch on the topic of grief as a parent with a child/adult with special needs, we've gotten probably as many private messages as we have about anything, about people basically saying, oh boy, I agree with that, and thank you for bringing this up. Nobody talks about this. So we wanted to go ahead and have a more in-depth discussion about grief. And I think the first thing that I want to say is when people think of the term grief, especially civilians, they're going to think in terms of, oh, you lost somebody. Mm-hmm. Someone died, and that's where the grief comes from. What we're talking about here is the grief of the life that we never got. Not that it died. It just, we never got it.
It was more about the life that we thought we would have.
Right. The promise that everyone expects when they're young, married, going to have kids, all those things that you expect to happen, those guideposts you expect to live through, and those moments that you're going to remember for the rest of your life. For people in our situation, those moments don't tend to come. And if they come, they're not very often, and they're very different.
Right.
And so there is a grief that's associated with that. And I know that that's really what we want to focus on, because a lot of people, from what I can tell from what we're seeing from these private messages and even public comments that we're seeing on Instagram, is that, I mean, to some degree, I think people are self-conscious about it. That they feel like they're not allowed to feel a grief about what's going on.
Or that they're complaining or something like
that. Things could be worse. Things could always be worse. And as we've said about a million things, it's easier for civilians to say that.
Right. Or I think other parents of special needs kids, adults, whatever, might think that if they say and talk openly about the grief, that whoever they're talking to might interpret that as, oh, you don't love your kid, you wish, negative thoughts or whatever. And like, this has nothing to do with that. We all love our kids so much.
Let's double punctuate that now. This is not about that we don't love our kids. This is not about that we're angry with our kids because they've robbed us of something. If you think that that's the case, then you are clearly a civilian, because you just don't have any understanding of what we're talking about.
Right.
For people in our situation, we're here to say you have permission to feel the way that you feel about the things that you have missed out on.
Right.
The things that your sister's kids, your brother's kids are getting to do, your best friend's kids, the life that they're getting to see, and they're seeing their child grow up and go through the normal progression of things that happen as you grow older. Missing out on those is a painful thing.
It is a painful thing.
And
because you only live once. That's the thing. It's not like we go through this life and then, oh, we get a second chance at this, and oh, we do get to experience watching our son get married or whatever. I mean, this is our only shot at that. And so yeah, it is, there's a grief. So let's jump into it.
Yeah, so let's jump into it. And like everything else in the special needs world, I think everyone's experience is unique. Mm-hmm. We have a unique experience in that, our son is kind of perpetually 7 years old. And he's only, I would say he's only recently turned 7. He hasn't been 7 since he was 7.
And he's almost 25.
Yeah, and he's almost 25 years old.
Yeah.
So our adult child is 7 years into his adulthood and has the intellectual capacity and emotional understanding the EQ of a 7-year-old, which is very charming. It can be very cute. We posted about me reading Jack and Danny to him every night. But it is also a constant reminder of all the things that we're not seeing.
Right.
And we're going to talk a little bit today about some of the other stories we've heard from people who are dealing with equally challenging situations with their kids who aren't adults yet, but still they're going to be in the same situation.
It's not even their stories. It's more about the comments that I would say that a lot of people responded to. I mean, it just showed us that we're not alone ourselves, because like we just said, nobody talks about it. And I think society expects special needs parents to always have a smile on their face.
Hey, thanks for watching Specialness. We really appreciate you taking time to watch our podcast, and we hope it's helping you out. If you could do us a favor and subscribe, it would really help us a lot to grow our community. Thanks a lot. I think that by and large, people are made uncomfortable when they are put in a position where they can't do anything about it. Mm-hmm. And I can relate to that.
Yeah, but that's maybe where I was saying I feel that they expect us to have a smile on our face, because
right.
If I always walked in a room of civilians and was pouty or maybe I had a horrible morning with Kaysen and I walked in not the best mood, they're not going to get it.
Well, that's uncomfortable for them.
It's uncomfortable for them. And they're probably at some point going to be like, she's like this again.
I really don't want to hang out with her anymore.
Yeah. And so, I mean, and maybe other special needs parents are different, but I do always have a smile on my face when I go into places. People, we've said it before, so many different times, people have no idea the life we live. When I meet people for the first time, they're like, what?
Yeah.
And
it's always nice to be asked, how are things going? And it's even better when you feel like you are being invited to share something beyond, we're hanging in there, which I think is what most people like to hear. Mm-hmm. I think that the reality is when you're in a situation where you're hearing about other people's kids, whether it's that they're playing soccer for the first time at the age of 5, or that they're starting to date or get married or have their own kids, or all these things, it is just it's a constant little, it's a little pinprick every time that you hear it or see it.
And that's why I made the post that I made.
Yeah, and you want to start with that first post?
Yeah.
So there was a couple of posts that Kim put out there that were a little different. We usually are putting out reels, from our podcast, but she did put out a couple of posts. And after I read this first one, I think it's important as to why now you chose to post these things, because there were some triggers, and I think that people will be able to relate to that. So let's talk about that too. Okay, so the post that was put out was just text on a blue screen. It says, "If you haven't raised a child with special needs, you truly don't understand how hard things can get some days. I don't care how close you are to the family, until you are the role of caregiver, you don't get it." Mm-hmm. So what prompted that for you to post that? Because in all honesty, that's not something we talked about, right? I mean, you posted it up. What was the impetus for you feeling like you wanted to get that out there?
Really, it just was, I don't know. There was a bunch of different things. Family, our own family, their kids are doing very normal things. And
to put that in perspective, Kaysen, there are 9 grandkids, right? And Kaysen is the second oldest. But,
almost the same age as the oldest.
Right.
Yeah.
So, yeah, he's 4 months younger than the oldest. But the bottom line is the youngest one is now 16 years old, 17 years old. So we are now where, they're acting a whole lot more like adults than they are kids now. And so now, more than ever, probably, everything they do amplifies everything that our son is not doing.
Right. And a couple weekends ago, we had rented a house and had so all of our family could be together, and my parents and everything, and it was a great weekend. But when we're with them, it is so obvious how different our life is than theirs. And everyone loves Kason, and it's nothing about, it's not.
They treat him great.
Yeah, this isn't
this
about.
It's not about that.
No, and it's not about them not understanding, because they do understand, but they don't understand.
Well, they understand as much as they can.
Right. And civilians, I think that's the majority of civilians, that they can understand, but until you live this every day, not just for 2 days or 3 days or whatever, but this is an everyday situation, you can't understand.
Yeah.
And so that's why I posted that, because, and it's not just family. I mean, friends say things all the time too, and you're just like, haha, and you laugh it off or whatever. But I saw that and I was like, you know what? That is so stinking true.
It speaks to me.
Yeah, it speaks to me, because until you walk in our shoes or any special needs parents' shoes, you have no idea.
Yeah.
And you can try to understand, but again, trying's not living it.
And I think that's another really strange part of the story, is that, because we talked about isolation before as being another thing that people need not be ashamed about, feeling like they feel isolated, because we are. Mm-hmm. But when you do get a chance to get together with, in our case, with our family, where we're all together, all the grandkids are together, everyone is hanging out. And again, everyone loves Kason, everyone treats Kason well.
And he loves it.
And he loves being with them.
Absolutely loves
this
being
is
with
not
them.
about This is not about them making us feel uncomfortable.
No.
But what it does point out is it is so clear to us, and probably not as much to them, how stuck in time he is, and how stuck in time we are.
It's not as much him as much as it is us.
Well, his being stuck in time freezes us.
Right. And again, Kason doesn't know the difference. He doesn't understand. And he's happy with what he's doing. He loves his day program, and he's happy, but he doesn't realize that it makes us be stuck in time. And again, we're not blaming him. This is nothing about blame.
Right.
But, when we're with everybody and all the kids, and, we stayed up and watched that stupid movie, really late and stuff, Kason has to go to bed at 9.
Yeah.
And
the movie scares him.
Yeah. And we have to help him do all the stuff and get all his medicine out. And it's just, I'm like, oh my gosh, we were doing this 15, 20 years ago when we were all together. And
they're talking about, one of them had their boyfriend over, so they're in a relationship. Others are talking about how they're finishing up school, they're in internships, they're looking at jobs, they're starting to drive.
Driver's license.
There's all kinds of these momentous occasions happening. Mm-hmm. And, we don't have any, and ironically, Kason isn't even aware that he's missing any milestones, right? Only we are.
Right.
And so I think that's good for him, but it's not great for us.
Right. And even though we have another son who is doing those things, that almost makes it worse to a degree, because we've talked about this before, we're living in two different worlds. Like, we can step over here into the neurotypical world and talk about, Jackson drives and Jackson's in school and he'll graduate in May and, that kind of stuff. But then we've got this whole other side of it.
Well, you're gonna get into all the categories that we fit into that make us kind of unique. I mean, the reality is, and this is, Marvel has made the multiverse a thing, right? Oh, and it's confusing and weird. We live in a multiverse.
Yeah.
We are truly living in an actual multiverse where, it's like we're from a different planet, and everyone is trying to adapt to us, but it's really the other way around.
Right.
We're trying to adapt to everybody, and people don't really understand what our situation is.
Right.
And even when we're with our family, you know, by the time we settle in for the night and everyone's kind of gone off to bed, and you and I get in bed, and we exhale and we go, oh, I'm just kind of glad today's over, you know, and that's terrible. You know, that's a terrible feeling to have. And I know that there's a lot of people out there who can relate to this because there's just no way to get on level ground. You know, the safest you feel is when you're not around other people, and then you feel isolated.
Right.
So when you try to get out there and you try to unisolate yourself, you can feel like, well, why am I even bothering? I don't fit in.
I don't fit in. Yeah.
And what's worse is it's nobody's fault. It's certainly not our fault. It's not their fault. It's not a civilian's fault that their lives are going forward. It's just until you experience the time stoppage of the multiverse.
Yeah.
You just can't possibly relate to what it's like.
No.
And you know, we have been dealing with feeling socially awkward for a long time, even though we're both very social people.
Right.
And if you want to go ahead and kind of move into the discussion of where we started that process was when we were having infertility issues, and we were in our late 20s, and everyone we knew was getting pregnant, and that was very hard on you. And it was hard on me, certainly, probably as much because it was hard on you. But I mean,
you weren't the one having to go to baby showers,
right? I wasn't the one who was having to attend all the baby showers and see people that were in your direct social circle. Again, experiencing something and moving on.
Yeah, and the fact that I did get pregnant, and I was in that mom group.
We're in the in crowd.
I was in the in crowd, and then when that was gone, they were still pregnant.
Or maybe it already had it.
Or they might have already had their child. And they didn't really know how to handle the situation. Not that they said anything rude or anything, but like you were saying, it's uncomfortable for them. And then the fact that I never could get pregnant, and then again and ended up having, to have hysterectomy and all that kind of stuff, that instantly isolated me from everybody because they all felt sorry for me or felt, I don't know, I didn't fit in.
I think, and this has been talked about a lot in certainly documentaries I've seen and women who are battling infertility, there is a tendency to treat a woman who is having a hard time getting pregnant almost like a pariah, like it's bad luck to be around them, like it's contagious. And so there is this, again, unintentional sort of ostracization of the person until they can get back in the graces, until you can have a child and move into the situation. So for us, that meant pursuing adoption.
Right. And as we're talking about grief, the baby we lost, the people that I was pregnant with about the same time or had a baby within that same time, their kids are now married and their kids are now having children. Their kids are now
26 years old and 27 years old, yeah.
And so again, there's that ache of, oh my gosh, we would have a child. Our child would be. And
you still think about that. We still think about that. It still crosses our mind.
What would he be like? What would he look like? So there's always a little bit of that grief that doesn't go away. And society doesn't understand that. A lot of women experience infertility, but a lot of women end up pregnant at some point. And to not be able to do that puts me and you in a category over here, right? Mm-hmm. And so, like you said, then we decided we wanted to be parents.
Yeah, we just wanted to be parents. We were going to pursue adoption.
And we got very mixed very mixed.
Yeah, I was very unprepared for that. There was certainly a fair share of congratulations, and I think to a large degree that was the mechanism by which you could basically say, once we were in the book and we were going to be going down the process, you were kind of pregnant,
Right.
and so you could kind of get back into the mommy crowd. But there were a few people who were like, well, why are you doing that? You don't know what you're going to get.
And that was a big one. A lot of people said that. You don't know what you're getting.
Yeah.
And you're parenting someone else's genetics. Why would you do that? Well, again, you're a civilian and you have your own children, and you were very blessed to be able to have, you and your wife are on your second kid, so you want to just look at them and say, shut up, because you don't understand. You don't understand. So now we're in another category that people.
Well, that's the second.
The second.
That's the second universe. That's the second part of the multiverse.
Yeah. That people, even today, almost 25 years later of adopting Kaysen and almost 21 years with Jackson of adopting him, it's interesting. The overwhelmingly majority of people are supportive of it. But there's still sometimes, even now, people when they find out they're adopted, and I'm like, what does that mean? Oh, are you feeling sorry for me that I couldn't have kids? I don't know what that is. And we've experienced it a lot with doctors that Kaysen have seen over the years and we've talked about this in a different podcast episode, that, you go to a new doctor, and especially when he's, young and we're just starting off, and you fill out the paperwork and it's all about who in the family has this. And I'm like, I don't know. And so I always would cross it all out, and I'd be like, he's adopted. We know a little bit, but we don't know everything. And then the doctor would come in and not have read all that. And Kaysen's sitting right there, and they'll be like, first thing, because Kaysen has, this red hair, and we don't have red hair. And most of the time, those doctors and nurses come in and be like, oh my gosh, where did he get that red hair? Well, he's adopted. And then the doctor will be like, oh, and then he'll start looking at the stuff, and he goes, oh, so you don't know.
So it turns out you don't know the history.
So you don't know much of the history.
Yeah.
And it's just, it puts you in this uncomfortable position. So I don't know. I just feel like you and I are always kind of living our lives in corners that the majority of people aren't living their lives in.
And I think it's natural to feel feelings of, I wasn't able to have children, and that's my fault. That's on me, that when you adopt, you're somehow made to feel like it's kind of, you're getting somebody someone didn't want,
right?
And you're settling,
right?
It's easy to feel those ways, and that's not right. That's not a healthy way to feel, and it's not a correct way to feel. And then when you matriculate into the third level of our multiverse, where we come into the special needs side, that's really compounded then, because now, they failed to have their own kids. They settled for some kid they didn't want, and now we know why they didn't want them.
No, we didn't. We wanted them.
Which is not true.
We wanted the child.
No. Right.
Oh.
What I'm saying is, now they adopted a kid. They settled for someone's kid that they did not want. The people who gave up the child did not want the kid, so they got him.
Right. And that's what you're saying is that's what civilians are saying to us and what they feel. Not more to the point, probably what we feel is being intimated, and maybe we're oversensitive, but they also make the assumption that we knew we were adopting a special needs child, which some people do that. Right.
And the world needs people who are going to do that. In our case, we didn't know about Kaysen's needs.
And we specifically asked
we've been over the amazing irony of saying we could accept anything except mental illness, and it turns out that's exactly what we got. But we didn't know the extent of Kaysen's needs literally it was 6 or 7 years before we even really came
Not even
close
that.
to understanding what we were dealing with.
No, I
It
would
was a good 15 years before we really, oh my God, he's got a genomic deletion.
13.
Okay, there's
13 to 15 years of that.
I mean, we were navigating, oh, he's a redhead. He's, I mean, it was a rough road until we finally figured it out. So it's been a journey along the way, but all those feelings, all the feelings of inadequacy, all the feelings of failure, that bob up and down from the water, that's tied to grief as well.
Well, like I say a lot, for me, those three things rotate a lot for me, because even though we've been parents for almost 25 years, like I said, things still come up about us not having biological children a lot.
Yep.
And even, let's say, family comments where, I don't know, say all the cousins are together or whatever, and one cousin looks a lot like, say, our dad, my dad when he was younger, whatever. And, they'll just start talking about that, and they'll be like, oh my gosh, look at this picture and stuff. And even that, I'm like, oh, and they don't mean anything by it. They're not trying to be insensitive. It's not on them. They shouldn't have to not say things. But just hearing that, like you said, it's a little like.
And I think it's important to point out, our podcast is for people like us, primarily. And what we are trying to do is impart any kind of wisdom we feel like we have gotten from our 25 years of doing this to people who are at the beginning of, in the middle of, in the same position we are. So this is not a podcast about civilians out there who need to be more sensitive to us. That's not what we're saying. What we're saying is, we have felt this way. We know you're feeling this way, and it's okay to feel this way. It's okay to be upset about it. It's okay that you have to go into a back room and cry and, isolate yourself so you can deal with those emotions.
Because you're the mom or dad having to drag your kid out of school, kicking and screaming, while everybody else's kids are excited to see their parents and showing them their artwork, but you're the one being isolated, or in our situation, asked to leave church. Don't come back.
Yeah. And as we say over and over on comments on Instagram and TikTok, we see you, we understand what you're going through, and we're trying to provide at least some emotional support. Now, if a civilian sees this, I mean, the only advice I would give them is, A, you shouldn't make assumptions about anything. Yeah. And B, again, I'm not asking you to treat us with kid gloves. I'm not saying we deserve special treatment, or should be thought of differently, or we should get constantly recognized for what we're doing.
I would say,
but just be aware that, sometimes we're gonna act a little weird, and that needs to be okay.
Or be supportive, meaning, especially if you're friends with somebody that has a special needs child or adult, don't, like you said, don't assume everything's fine, because it's not fine.
Right.
I mean, it could be fine at that moment, but the next day could be a horrible day or whatever. And it's just, it would be nice for civilians to recognize a little bit more, check in a little bit more, and acknowledge when something might be hard for us, or bring up something like a milestone missed or something, and just have it acknowledged of, God, I bet you this is kind of hard for you, or something like that. Instead, that's where I was saying at the beginning, I feel so many times the society and civilians expect special needs parents to smile and put on our big boy, big girl panties and just conquer the world, which we do. We all do that, and get up in the morning and we fight the next day, and we do it, and we're strong people. But that doesn't mean that there's been lots of situations that are very emotionally hard for us.
And we've touched on, we acknowledge that most of the people that are participating and commenting and stuff on our reels and stuff, 90% of them are women, and I assume that they are then talking to their spouses or partners about what's going on. We've heard from some men for sure.
Yeah.
But it is a different experience for a special needs mother and a special needs father. You know, we've talked about, it's been met with some controversy about the roles that you have. You know, one has to take care, one has to try and make money, and it's not fair either way. But there's also just because of the way it's very hard on women, because women tend to fixate on talking about their kids.
And that goes back to the infertility part.
And that goes all the way back to that.
Right.
And men tend to talk about jobs and other
Sports
things.
and
So it's harder for men to find support. And I will tell you that my closest friends, I have literally asked them, please check in on me from time to time. And you know, some of them do and some of them don't. And it's not that I'm disappointed or angry or whatever. I guess what I'm saying is, my advice is, if you feel you need that and you can't find it somewhere, whether because you don't have time or you don't have access to whatever it would necessitate those type of relationships, if you have close friends, there is nothing wrong with asking them to check in on you. Because look, I'm okay, at least outwardly, almost all the time. But
Yeah,
I'm not okay a part of the time.
Right.
Even when I look like I am.
Yeah, me neither.
And I think the people that know me best still know that. They can pick that out. And, you know, if there's any advice here for you out there who are trying to navigate your way through this, ask for the help. And if you're not getting it, you know, well, you're not getting it. But at least you're asking, and you're not just allowing yourself to be isolated. Because the grief is so real and it's so heavy. And
that's why I posted the second one.
Yes, the second one, which was, this was, what, a couple days later?
I think so.
Yeah. And this one was really simple, and we'll put it up on the screen. It's just a girl in a hoodie sitting by the ocean, and it says, "The Waves of Grief and Special Needs Parenting."
Right.
Now, what I find ironic here is that the waves are pretty calm, actually.
Yeah, I saw that too.
Yeah,
they're not. It's
there could be some pretty serious waves here,
right,
depending on what's going on.
But we got a lot of comments and stuff where people are like, "Yes," with 1,000 exclamation points, or 100%, or "Thank you for talking about this." Nobody ever says anything about the grief. I loved this one who said, "No parent is ever fully prepared for every point that will bring them down again." I loved that, because that's so true. You could be totally fine. Well, you know what I mean. Fine.
Well, I mean, for us, it's all relative.
Right.
Right.
And then you get on social media, which, by the way, somebody else had said, you know, there are times where I just cannot be. I have to completely be off social media.
I mean, that's one thing that you and I have talked about, because I'm not as active on Facebook as probably I should be, considering some of the things we've started to do here, and I need to get better at that. But I know that I can tell when social media is getting to you, and I have had to say, "Hey, let's take a break today."
Yeah.
You know.
And so what triggered that post specifically was, I was fine until I wasn't. When I got on, I think it was, I don't even know, Instagram, Facebook, one of those. And I saw a lot of people that we know, we haven't maybe seen in a while, or some we have. And it was a mixture. People dropping off their kids at college, not for some for the first time, but other times this is like
last time, or
or it's their sophomore year and they're moving into an apartment or something different. And the comment from the mom, it's normally the mom, the dad didn't say anything, but the mom was saying, like, "Oh my gosh, this is the hardest thing ever, and I'm so sad, and I cried the whole way home, and I just can't imagine being by myself at home with my husband, and oh my gosh." And again, I am not blaming them. I am not saying they don't have a right to feel that. They do. But at the same time, I'm over here going, you should be so thankful that you can even drop your child off at school.
You know, I think the cruel irony for special needs parents who are in a position where they are caring for a child who is over the age of 18 and for whatever reason isn't going to go to college, isn't going to get a job, isn't going to live independently. The problem that we have that civilians don't have is civilians observe us and cannot relate to it.
Not at all.
We observe them and can totally relate to it because what we're seeing is what we see in movies and TV shows and Hallmark specials where families get together and have wacky hijinks.
It's
and they're
quote
all
normal
happy.
life.
Right,
Yeah.
that's the normal life. We know what a normal life is supposed to look like. And because all of our stories are so independently unusual, I mean, you know, you were exchanging some messages with somebody today on Instagram, and what they're having to do with their 12-year-old on a daily basis is something that, wow, I mean, whoa, we don't have to do that. And I have a hard time even relating to that. And I'm in a similar situation. So just imagine the frustration that we feel when we're watching somebody talk about how sad they are, that they're just going to be alone with their spouse from now on. And they'll just be able to just travel and sleep late and drink coffee and, you know, what the terrible life that is.
Right. So there were those comments, you know, oh, it's so heart-wrenching dropping the child off. But then there were the other ones, and these are almost worse, that they were like, woohoo, yay, we get to adult, it's total freedom. That to me is what hit me hard, and that's why I posted that, because it changed my mood for the day.
Yeah,
and
like that.
Because like another comment had said, you know, the envy is real. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you know, we're almost 55 years old, and we should be about at that point. You know, like I said, Jackson will be 21 in December.
Yeah,
Payson will be 25 in February.
The life we signed up for says we should be at that point.
We should be at that point.
Right.
And we should be able to have some freedom. We have done our parenting job. We have sent our kids off to be independent and live their life. That is what is normal and natural. And to see that, I mean, yeah, jealousy is huge, where I'm like, oh my gosh, like, we can't do that. And if we want to get away, we've got to find a caregiver, and we have to do this, and we can't be gone a week because Kaysen has to have his infusions, and this and this and this. And to be honest, I mean, it brings up that jealousy, and it brings up an anger that I don't like when I feel like that.
Well,
and again, it's not an anger at Kaysen.
It's the worst kind of frustration because you can't do anything with it. There's no remedy for it. It's not like you can, you know, I don't think it's a secret that as Americans, you know, one of the platitudes we hear is that, you know, you can do anything you want to do. You can accomplish anything. The only thing in your way is yourself, and, you know, all these things that certainly are true for some people. But for people like us that are stuck in time, there isn't an alternate reality. There isn't a multiverse we can go escape to where things are different and we can be there for a little while before we have to go back to normal.
Right.
We have to accept that the fight is every day and, you know, gird our loins to do that on a daily basis.
Right. And we're having to think about, like, our peers are dropping their kids off at college, knowing their kids are going to have a great time and they're going to get an education or whatever it might be and have fun and all that kind of stuff. But what we have to think about is our will updated the right way? We need to find someone. What happens if something happens to us? Because God forbid, Jackson can't take care of Kaysen. That's not fair on him. And
we don't want that.
And we don't want that. But the things that special needs parents have to think about, civilians aren't thinking about that. They know, I mean, no one wants to think about them dying and leaving their children or adult children, but at least you know your adult child can drive, can take care of themselves, can get dressed by themselves, can get to where they're going by themselves. They know what they're doing. And like you were saying, Kason functions about a 7-year-old. If something happened to us, he's 7.
Right.
Perpetually.
And I think that the other aspect of it is, here's another platitude you're going to hear from people. Well, everyone has difficulties. Everyone gets thrown a curveball. We all have our struggles.
We all have hardships, which is true.
And none of that's not true. The only problem is that from our perspective is that we have this plus all that. Mm-hmm. We still have to worry about money. We still have to worry about, all the things that normal married people have to worry about. But we're also it's also greatly complicated by these other things that we're having to deal with. Mm-hmm. And so our days, whether they're good days or bad days, the attitude we wake up with in the morning versus another morning, it's all based on it can be based on very small things. Mm-hmm. And that goes both ways. Yep. I mean, I've woke up in a great mood because of something that for anyone else would be like, well, why is that a big deal? Right. And for me, it's like, no, you don't understand. This is like giant. Mm-hmm. That I won't have to do that this morning. That's so weird. Mm-hmm. It's such a strange life to live. Mm-hmm. And the grief ebbs and flows like waves. When someone dies, grief is great, and then it fades.
There's a finality.
There's a finality to it.
Yeah.
There is no finality to our grief because Kason's never going to get married, and that's not true today. It's also true tomorrow. It's true next year, and it's true 10 years from now. Mm-hmm. We don't have any hope that, someday maybe he's going to meet the right person and we're going to
Or maybe one day he's going to be able to live independently and take care of himself. We know that's not. And we also know in the back of our mind that there's a good chance he's not going to have a very long life just due to all his health stuff. And so, again, civilians, they're not living that. Right. Civilians do not get up every day and wonder, is today the day that this medicine's going to stop working?
Well, because I think there's a third point here, a third moment in the last week that I think people are going to want to hear and can relate to as well. So there was something that happened that made you post both of those posts. Something you saw on Facebook, something small that changed your whole day. The further irony is the day of that you made that second post, you got a text from your sister. Mm-hmm. It's your little family text, right?
And it's again.
No, just let me get it out, and then you can, we can defend it all we want. This is the little text chain that is your 3 sisters and your mother,
and
right?
My dad.
Oh, your dad's on it too?
It's a family text.
But Dad doesn't participate as much, right?
No,
I mean, it's primarily the ladies, right? Her 16-year-old son had just gotten his driver's license, which is a moment in time. It's a passage in time. So how did you feel when you saw that? Because I didn't see it. I'm not on the text. So how did you feel?
Well, I'm happy for him.
Sure.
I mean,
it's exciting.
It's exciting. Yeah. He should be excited. They should be excited. But it was what she said after that was like, and she didn't mean anything by it. But she said...
It's certainly not directed at you.
No, not at all. But it was interesting because she's a civilian, and she was like, this is bittersweet for me because I don't get to... After 25 years of driving kids to school and stuff, I don't have to do that anymore. And it was the word bittersweet, where, again, it's not even on her radar. Right. But to me, I'm like, oh my gosh, like, I'll be driving Kason everywhere. We drive him and pick him up. I mean, it's because we live in Groundhog's Day. It's the same old, same old. And again, I'm happy for him. I'm excited for him. I'm excited for her that she doesn't have to drive kids anymore. But that is a perfect example of a civilian not understanding that there are people out there that will have to drive their
Not understanding what the comment,
Right.
how heavily it can weigh on you.
Mhm.
And then later that same day,
or the next day. I think it was the next day.
it was the next
I think
day.
it was the
Okay.
next day.
You get a text on the same string from your younger sister.
My other sister.
And it's a picture of our niece and nephew sitting across from her on a couch, and they're reading literal books.
Yeah, and she's reading too.
Right.
So her
But I mean, they're not reading on a phone. They're holding books,
Yeah.
old school. They're reading books, and her comment was
something about like, I'm loving such a quiet night. We're all reading and I'm baking cookies. And I literally laughed out loud. Beautiful for them. Love it. I'm so happy that her kids love to
it's
read.
a very Facebook moment.
It is a Facebook moment.
Yeah.
And again, I love my family. I love my sisters. I love my nieces and nephews. This has nothing to do with that.
I do too.
Right. And I know you do too. But it's the fact that I literally laughed out loud when I read that. Because, first of all, you were up reading Jack and Annie.
Which is a book series for 5 to 8 year olds.
Right.
Yeah.
To Kaysen. And this is after, there had been a little tiff with him or whatever where he had an itch that wouldn't go away and he scratched his face. And so he had a little bit of blood and then that freaked everybody out. And
Well, it didn't freak everybody.
that
It
freaked him out. And again, he's almost 25 and this is our life. And
by the way, he tells us almost every day that he's almost 25, that he's older than Cooper Flagg.
Yeah,
That, he points out how old, he's very proud of how old he is.
Right. But it was also the time that she had sent it where it was like 9:30 or something. And she was like, oh, we're all just reading. It's a quiet night, baking cookies. And I was laughing when I literally laughed because Kaysen has to go to bed.
Kaysen is either getting ready to go to bed or already in bed when you get it.
Oh, he's normally in bed before that. Because we normally start the process at
Right.
like 8:30.
He doesn't always get to bed by then, but he's definitely in the process of
We're
going
getting
to
his
bed.
medicine out.
Yeah.
We're doing our typical routine. And then you go up and you're reading Jack and Annie. And that's why I just laughed out loud because I was like, they're all enjoying this peace and quiet. And I literally was like, when was the last time you and I could just bake cookies and sit and read a book?
Well, when was the last time our night together started at
a normal
before 10 o'clock?
Right, because it takes him so long to get ready and he needs help with this and then his CPAP's not working and then it's just that is so I just laughed at this because both my sisters
It's like having a newborn.
it is it's,
It's the same schedule, right? Your night never starts when you want it to.
no it doesn't.
Because he always needs something.
Yeah. But I found it so ironic that I had just posted those two, and
Which they probably liked or saw or commented.
yeah, and I know they have empathy for us. Or sympathy for us. This isn't that. But I just laughed because it was so ironic that even my family, and that's why that first one even says you can be as close as you think you are. It could be family to a special needs husband, wife, parent, whatever. Until you live it, you have no idea what it's like. And so, I'm very happy for my sisters and their families, and they've been very blessed. And that's great. And we support them and we support our nieces and nephews and stuff. But that does not take away from our grief.
And would you say, I think that I would say about, you, that this past week, you clearly hit a breaking point.
Mm-hmm.
Not that it was really probably any different than the previous, 100 weeks, but you're able to fight through until you reach a point where you're not able to, and you just got to take a week off, which is what you did this week, and why you posted the things you posted, why you reacted the way you did to those texts, which I'm sure people would say, hey, don't be so sensitive.
Right.
And,
or just be happy for them. Just
you know
be
what,
happy.
you right there, who's having to deal with this, you've earned the right to be sensitive. Okay. It doesn't mean that you need to let people tell you that you shouldn't be. It's okay.
Right.
All right. You're allowed to feel the way you want to feel. And It doesn't mean that you have to go out and tell everybody. It doesn't mean you got to, mad Facebook about how people suck.
No, it has nothing to do with
you
that.
You don't have to do any of that, but it's okay
to
feel the frustration
and the sadness
and the grief and the sadness. These are, because if you don't, this is how marriages break up.
100%.
Right? This is how care gets out of control. This is how our lives get fractured when we don't allow ourselves to deal with these things in a healthy way. Because God knows therapy doesn't help.
No.
I mean, we have told this story once, but it's worth telling again. Because how old was Casey? I mean,
he was probably
10, 12. I mean, we still didn't have the full picture of what was going on. Right. So let's call this 12, 13 years ago. And, we had gotten, we'd gotten at least 1 or 2 diagnoses every year for the last 7, 8 years. And we're spending money on things. We don't know why we're spending money on. We don't know if it's helping. We're trial and erroring with drugs. I mean, it is all over the place, and we're frustrated.
Right.
And we haven't been able to go anywhere. And we're tired of. We're just tired.
Right.
And so we say, you know what? Maybe we should go see, a counselor and share our story with them, and maybe they can give us some insights we can't see.
Right.
Fresh set of eyes. Right. And ironically, I'm sure we were dealing with all the same feelings that you were dealing with this week that we have dealt with before, but we're probably frustrated with our own family. We're frustrated with our friends. We're feeling isolated. We're feeling grief. We're feeling all those things. Nothing's changed from then to now. But we decided we were going to go see a counselor. And I remember it was, at the time, it wasn't going to be covered by insurance. It was going to cost like $250. And we laughed about that and how crazy that was. And we go, and it was a 50-minute session. And we sat there, and we shared our story, and we talk about our frustration and our grief. And we probably talked about civilians without calling them civilians.
Right.
But it culminated with that counselor. God bless her.
Yeah, not her fault.
Wonderful woman.
Yeah, super nice.
Super nice. I'm sure she's helped countless people.
Right.
But the first thing I remember coming out of her mouth was, you guys are dealing with a really difficult situation. Now, she probably thought that would make us feel really good, but we already knew that.
Right.
So we're like, and I think we both looked at her like, and?
Yeah.
And then she goes, you guys just have to figure out a way to get some time for yourselves.
You need to get away.
Just get away.
Take a long weekend.
And I remember we both kind of looked at each other. We acknowledged what was being said. It's like we read each other's mind and we were like, let's just get through the end of this thing because there's no reason to come back. And we were like, yeah, boy, that's a great idea. You're spot on. And we went in the car and we just started laughing. Because we're like,
yeah,
we just spent $250 for someone to tell us that we need to figure out a way to take a break.
Yeah. And
the only problem is she didn't tell us how we were supposed to.
Yeah. Who's gonna care for him?
Right.
Who's gonna, yeah. I mean, it was just like the way she said it, and I don't know, but the way she said it was like, it's really easy, just go.
It's the equivalent of what our new friend Jill was telling you over a private message. There's a lot of people out there who have a lot of things to say to people like us that should be on a bumper sticker.
Well, there's a lot of special needs content out there.
Yeah.
And a lot of,
whether or not it's written by people who are actually dealing with it or not.
Not even written. I'm saying it's their lives, or there's other podcasts or whatever. And, but I liked what she said, Jill had said, and she was like, there's a lot of the God gives special needs kids to special people, and it was funny. And it was the way she was like, there's a lot of that bumper sticker fluff.
Yeah.
And I laughed at that because it's true. And that's where I'm like, I responded back to her and I was like, but you know what? That's not Jeff and I. I mean, we understand where they're coming from.
Yeah,
but
we get what you're saying.
Right.
We just know it's not really
But let's
plausible.
talk the reality of our lives. Let's talk the real feelings that we have.
Yeah.
Because yes, there's joy, and yes, we love our kids, and yes, there's amazing moments and things we would never change. But
Look, we're getting known for saying things that people don't say out loud, and I guess that's a good thing.
Because we get that comment
Yeah.
a lot.
Yeah.
Thank you for actually saying it.
Yes. And I remember one of our earlier reels. I think it was actually the one that it's close to 250,000 hits now. It was about, it was that factoid that turned out to not be correct. But
The divorce
rate, about how 87% of people get divorced. And we found out through several people that wasn't quite accurate. But boy, it sure didn't feel like when people were responding to it that way.
Mm-hmm.
But part of the comments that we got on there was a couple of people, it was very isolated, but there was a couple of people who were like, you guys are just so negative. You know what? You just need a positive attitude, and just embrace the good,
Right.
And don't let the bad pull you down,
Right.
And I just wanted to reach through whatever platform, Instagram, reach through the internet or AI or whatever, and just punch them in the face, because it's not negative. We're not being negative. We're just talking about reality.
Right. We are positive.
We're absolutely positive.
We are very positive.
The fact that we're still married, still sane, and our child is in as good a shape as he is shows you that we're a testament to incredible success and positivity.
And we laugh a lot, and we have a ton of humor and stuff, but that does not erase.
It doesn't change reality.
It doesn't. And our feelings are valid. And the whole point of us talking about this is the fact that our own community, special needs community, doesn't acknowledge these feelings.
And we're, and that's something that as we're closing here, that's something I want to address and talk about very directly and specifically, is that, and we've said this before, when we started this podcast, it was really just kind of an effort to just kind of self-therapize ourselves. And, and then as we got comments and stuff, we started seeing, people need this. People want to talk about this. And so we're pivoting to starting to create content that'll be different than just a podcast, that, we're going to be trying to reach out and help companies think differently about their employees that are in a situation like us. We're going to be trying to deal with the medical community about treating families like ours with the respect that they treat other patients that don't have our problems, and understanding the difficulties that we're dealing with just by educating yourselves a little bit.
That they don't grow out of autism.
They don't grow out of it.
Schizophrenia does not just go away at 18.
You should respect a guardianship paper, those types of things. One of the other things that we've gotten a lot of private messages about is, are we thinking about trying to create some sort of support group, community, something? And we are, and we're hoping to make an announcement fairly soon about the germination of that community in sort of a support group kind of way. And
so other families, other parents, not families, but other parents, single, married, divorced, whatever.
We can just call them caregivers.
Yeah, caregivers, special needs caregivers can talk the way you and I are talking, because this is therapy for us.
It's free. It's very freeing. And I don't think we realized that, because, this is just the way we talk. But when people would send us comments and stuff and say, gosh, thanks for saying that, it was almost like they were saying, I have never been able to say that. I've never felt like I could say that. Mm-hmm. That feels great to us to know that we have been able to impact even just a handful of people on that level, to where they feel differently about their situation because in some way they feel acknowledged or seen. We intend to grow that, and it's going to take time. But part of it is we realize there's a disparate community within our community. We are following rules that we have allowed society to put on us. We are not saying things because we feel like we shouldn't, because people don't want to deal with that. Well, we should be able to say those things to each other.
Yeah, we should. We should have more places to talk to other parents and be like, oh my gosh, this was so hard or whatever. Because it's isolating, and not everybody has the same resources of
Right.
being able to meet other special needs parents. And I like this one, I don't remember even where I got it, but I loved what it says. It says, one of the reasons there's that grief and stuff is that it's exhausting having an invisible job. And I love the word invisible because that is exactly what we deal with.
Right.
It goes unnoticed by everybody, but exhausting to an invisible job that we as caretakers deal with as the world was not built for difference. And I was like, oh, ding, ding, ding.
Well, one of the things that I would say to people, I think there are a lot of people who are in a situation like we are, where they have a child who is adult age, but doesn't have the capacity of an adult. Mm-hmm. And the one thing that I think they should know, when you talk about it being an invisible job, the people we care for don't even acknowledge what we're doing because they're not able to. Mm-hmm. Right? At least not to the extent that maybe we would like to be acknowledged, right?
Yeah, and we don't fault them for that.
We are not faulting them. They do it to the best of their ability.
Yeah.
But when it's bad enough when you feel isolated by everyone else around you. But there's now that added element of even the person I've given everything up for to care for, even they don't understand the weight of what this is. They don't understand of how much this has changed my life.
And you're going to get a bunch of negative comments.
You're darn right I am. And because they're going to take it out of context.
Well, they're going to say, quit blaming the special needs child.
And I'm not. And again, what I will say in direct response to that, if you think I'm blaming the special needs child for what's happened to me, you're one of two people. Either you're a civilian who doesn't know what the hell they're talking about, or you are a parent who is new to this journey, or an aunt or an uncle to someone who thinks they're an authority on this. It's never about the child. It's never their fault. What has happened to them, the way God made them is not their fault.
No.
But you know what? It's not your fault either, and it's not my fault. Mm-hmm. And someone has to deal with it, and we're doing the very best we can. Mm-hmm. And the reason I don't get that upset about comments who, I think they're kind of funny because, again, it's just so out of context from the whole podcast. They're hearing this little bit about how I don't do anything at home and now how I'm blaming my child for my life. The reality is that as long as you're happy, I'm happy, and Kaysen's happy, no matter how isolated and grief-stricken I feel, that's really all that matters.
Right.
Because that's what we're hoping we can help people out there feel. Mm-hmm. You are good enough. What you're doing is good enough. Mm-hmm. And you don't need to worry what other people are telling you. No matter what their role is in your life, you know best how to take care of your child. Mm-hmm. And that's the way it should go.
Yeah. And that it's okay to feel sad
some
days and frustrated and all those other things. And we get it.
Yeah.
And we almost 25 years in, and it's hard.
That makes us experts.
It makes us experts.
25 years of doing anything is
But, I loved seeing some comments from people that were like, our son's 42 or whatever. And
our son is 64.
64.
I saw one that was
really
that said they were 64, and
then
they were like 89.
Oh my gosh!
And they've been caring for their child, for 64 years.
Right.
I mean and they've been doing it. I mean, they were. I think it was part of that divorce rate one, so that they had been on their own a lot of that. Man, I mean, talk about respect.
That's
someone who's fought through that for that long, and I don't even know what the circumstances of their child was, but fighting through that for that long on your own in a world that doesn't recognize what you're doing or is really all that interested in helping you out, that's pretty incredible.
That is incredible. And to kind of wrap everything up, one comment really kind of stood out to me about the grief, and that where civilians don't understand it. If a special needs parent mentions grief or whatever, she said, it's not a one-time loss. It's 1,000 little losses along the way.
Yeah, that's a really good way to put it.
Yeah.
Well, that's where we talked about that. It started with the joke about the waves didn't seem big enough on the picture. And when we talked about when someone dies, there's grief and then it fades away. We don't have anything to do with the grief we have.
And it compounds.
Yeah.
And I think that when I read that, that's what I first thought of, is like, oh my gosh, that's so true, because you get through one milestone that they've missed and you're like, you think you're okay with it, but then it's the next and it's the next and it's the next and it's the next and it's the next. And now,
well, and when you think about how many milestones pile up between the age of, let's say, 13 and 23, I mean, you go, well, that's 10 years. Well, there's a whole lot that happens in a child's life between 13 and 23.
Well, and I've always said, I think for me, the grief has been worse since Kaysen's been an adult.
Yes, absolutely.
Because when he's in school, elementary school, whatever, everyone else's kids are in school. Now, granted, he's not doing the same things they are, but they're still parenting. And they're still, no one's driving yet. No one's...
A lot of people make comments about that, and we've talked about this too, that when your kids are young and they're with other young kids, well, if our kid is 6 but acts like he's 3, and the other kids are 6 but act like they're 5, you don't really notice.
Right.
But the older they get, the behavior starts to delineate themselves. And then when you start getting to the events is when it really kicks you. Mm-hmm. Because, again, it's not like, well, he just turned 16, so he could get his driver's license. Maybe he'll get it next year. No, he's never going to. Mm-hmm. And so what do you do with that? Mm-hmm. What do you do with that disappointment? And honestly, that's not a very big one. I mean, compared to some of this others,
No, for me, it's because we're at this point of they're getting married.
Yeah.
And they're starting to have kids.
Yeah.
And to see, and that was another one this week too, that someone we knew, her daughter had a baby.
And her daughter is approximately the almost exact same age that our child that we lost would be.
Yeah.
Right.
And you're just like, oh my gosh. And you see the joy on their faces, and that they, oh my gosh, you're going to be I can't remember what their names, grandparent names are going to be. And it's a stage of life.
Yeah.
And they're excited about it. And,
now that I think about it, I think that's the key to this, is if you think that I'm hating on people because I'm mad they're experiencing things that I'm not thinking, or that you think I'm blaming my kid for the life I have, it's just clear you don't get it. Mm-hmm. Because it's not that we're not happy for those people. We are. It's not that we're not happy for our nieces and nephews. But you can't argue the incredibly cruel irony of the fact that we realize we will never experience that with our child.
Right.
It changes nothing for the other people. Mm-hmm. It changes nothing about how I feel about them. I don't resent them, I'm not angry with them.
Right.
But I'm allowed to feel angry and frustrated and vent a little at the universe in general, because I feel like something's been taken from me that I never had a chance to have. Mm-hmm. I didn't pass on the experience.
Right.
I didn't choose not to.
We wanted this experience. We wanted, and it's the same thing. And that's why it goes back to the infertility and stuff. And that's why I said those 3 things rotate for me, and I think for you too, because it kind of goes back that when you get married, most people think about having a family.
Sure.
And we're going to have kids. And when you have that kid and you see that kid and you're like, oh my gosh, those dreams for that kid start right then and there. But for you and me, we didn't even get to that point.
No, but nobody gets married without future plans. Mm-hmm. Nobody gets married and says, well, we'll see what happens.
Right.
You're always thinking about, okay, we're in an apartment now. We're thinking about getting into a house. When are we going to have kids?
Or
when
you
we have
laugh
kids, we're going to name them.
Yeah, what are we going to name our kid? If it's a boy or whatever. I mean, that is natural, normal life.
Right.
Natural, normal.
And we did all those things.
We just didn't get any of the payoff.
Right. Or for those of you who are going to yell at me, we got a different payoff.
Without a different payoff.
I was treated specially because I'm a special person, But even if that's true, I still didn't get the same experience that other people got, and you didn't either. And I think that that's the bottom line here, is that we are a population who has been, choose whatever verb you want to use, robbed, taken from us. You can make it as violent as you want to make it. You can also make it nice and say, we just didn't have the opportunity. It doesn't really matter what you say. The reality is we just didn't get it. And we're allowed to feel how we want to feel about that. And
even if you have another child that is neurotypical, it's still very different. And we can, another episode is going to be on siblings and stuff, but Jackson's life growing up was not typical at all.
No.
And
I can tell you we're never going to get him on this podcast.
Yeah, he'll never be on it. But our whole life is affected by this.
Right.
So, and I think we've talked about that, how like we had, 2 kids, but one of us always had to stay behind with Kaysen. So, yes, Jackson was doing typical normal children things, but we weren't doing it as a family.
We do not have in our history a shared family experience that we can talk about and say, we both saw that happen because one of our kids was next to us and the other one was doing the thing they were doing. Because one of us was with one, the other was with the other, and we had to tell the other one what happened.
There might have been the one that Kaysen went to for a little bit, but I couldn't. I mean, I'm with him doing everything.
I do recall he went to one of
Jackson's
Jackson's soccer games, and he got, he couldn't, there was bees or
he couldn't handle it.
He can't handle being outside. You ended up having to go sit in the car.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, look, bottom line, and we've covered this and defended ourselves, or I've defended myself. The reality is, like people are saying, grief is real. We're allowed to have it. We're allowed to feel it. We're allowed to share it. And if nothing else, you got a place to share it now, whether it's in the comments here or listening to us or messaging us. We get it. We're giving you permission to do that. We're telling you it's okay no matter what anyone says, and you got nothing to be ashamed of.
Right. Very well said.
Man, we've stirred some stuff up this week. We'll have to see what happens next week. Well, until then, I'm Jeff.
And I'm Kim.
And this is Specialness. We'll see you next time.